Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, host of the Today Show here on the Disability Channel. Really great to be back in the saddle again after being away for a week. And today I decided I do enjoy a solo show. And I've decided that this would be the time that I would do that today. And no guests, but we do have people who are watching. We're streaming live on Facebook right now, Laurie Davis Facebook page. We're streaming live on my YouTube channels. There are two of them. And one, if you search Laurie Davis Show Host, and the other one is called 5 Minutes to No Limits. And so we're streaming on both of those today. Wednesday is always about wellness. And I've been away for a week and I did some workshops with some incredible people. And actually, the person that learns the most when I'm presenting or I'm facilitating is me. And I realized while I was away that communication, I didn't realize, I know that people struggle with communication. It's the one thing that can mess up a marriage. It can mess up a relationship. It can mess up a lot of things. It can even mess up your health. So that's where I would like to go today. And if anybody's watching live and they want to comment or put questions up, we'll certainly address those. And good morning, Kathy, to you. And thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank all my viewers for being here. A lot of people can't be here live at this time of the day, but they do go in after the fact. And I call it get their little Laurie fix. So today, Laurie's going to talk about communication. I thought, well, now how am I going to approach this? This is where I like to get creative and I like to put forth my ideas in a creative kind of way. So what I did, I took the word, which I often do, communication, and I just jotted it down this way. So I've got COMMUNI, and I spelled communication. And then beside each letter, I came up with a word that communication creates. Great communicators are not that easy to find. And I know that from experience because I was not a very good communicator. I could talk a lot, but that doesn't mean that you're an effective communicator. Actually, listening became more important to me than talking. So that's where we're going to go today. And we're going to take the word communication and break it down and figure some things out. And that's what I've been doing a lot lately, figuring stuff out. Why is this? What's that? And I just want to put out a big shout out to the clients that I enjoyed working with last week. I went up north and I met up with one group of 12. And then the next 2 days, I had 13 amazing men that I worked with. And we processed a lot of things and we got some stuff done. And I'm quite sure of that because of the feedback and the scores and all of that I enjoyed from that experience. So how does communication impact our health? Well, I know from personal experience that how I communicate, especially when I'm not feeling good, and most recently, as some of you know, I had surgery, emergency surgery, and I was really sick. I'd never been so sick in my whole life. And I was told that if they had not done that surgery, I would have had 2 more days to live, and that would have been it. Because the poison in my system, gangrene, would have set in, and I'd have been done. But the whole time I was in the hospital, I was there for 10 days, I went, I am going home. I will be okay. This is just a little bump in the road. Something's very wrong. It needs to be fixed. I'm in the right place. I have all these professionals around me taking care of me. It's all good. Or I could have laid there and thought, oh my gosh, what's Ron going to do if I die? How's he going to manage? I could have put in all kinds of other communication, but I didn't even go there. I went, and some people might say that's denial. I say, no, it's clarity. I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that I was going to be okay. And I just kept reconfirming that. And my recovery has been amazing. I've never felt better. I did what they told me. It's going to take 6 weeks, but you can't lift anything over 5 pounds. And I paid attention. And self-care is paramount for me. It always has been, really. I haven't always known how to do that, but if I didn't know how, I found out. And I know that my emotional stability is what carries me through these situations. And I only got emotional twice. Now, there would have been a time I'd have cried through that whole thing, but I got emotional when I was going through the CAT scan machine. This was real now. This is real when they want to do that test. And it's like a big donut. And I went through it and I saw my name in lights up over the CAT scan machine. Laurie Harriet Davis. And I went, oh man. And this is really happening. And this is real. And I started to tear up and cry. And then when I was in the pain, where the pain was severe, I've never felt pain like that. I could hardly breathe. I thought I was having a heart attack. But all the while, my self-talk, which I've had to work on very hard, and I still work on it because there are a lot of, and I just finished a men's group and we talked about this. We've had a lot of very negative tapes that have been played to us about who we should be, what we should be doing, what's wrong with us, not what's right with us, and that what's wrong with us gets the focus. So it's important how you communicate with yourself first. And if you're not a good communicator with yourself, chances are you're not doing a good job in other places either. And I've lost family, I've lost friends, I've lost relationships, opportunities, because I didn't know how to communicate. And it's a huge, huge situation for a lot of people because we've been silenced and we've not had a voice. And perhaps we were told that what you have to say doesn't matter. And I don't know about you, but I went through the school system and then I became a teacher. So I worked in the school system. And when I look back at that, I think, why did I do that? Because that was the only place that I felt safe. So I went back in there to work. I didn't go outside the system to go get a job at a bank or do something different. So our communication, and I have a little story about that. I had a little boy one time, and he had a speech impediment. And I thought, wow, I've got to get the speech therapist in here to talk to him or to get him some special help. And we only saw the speech therapist maybe once a month. She'd fly through the district. So this is back in the 70s. And I called his mom to let her know that I wanted to put him on a list for speech therapy. And lo and behold, the mom was talking the same way. And there was no hearing loss or anything like that. It was just here. And I went, wow. Turns out, though, mom had hearing loss. And so her voice and how she spoke is how her children spoke. You see what I'm saying? We don't always have the proper people around us, or that's just one example. Another example, our Indigenous communities, when they went into the residential school system, they weren't allowed to talk. First of all, they weren't allowed to talk in their own language. So if you're not allowed to speak, and then they were forced to learn English, and they weren't still not allowed to speak. So having a voice was lost. That's another kind of situation. Why we're not effective communicators. How would things change for us if we could communicate effectively to get the results we want, both personally and professionally? How would that change things? It changes everything. It changes everything. Because first I look at the result and then I go, now how do I need to communicate that? I think very precisely about that. And it's not about being manipulative or anything like that. It's just, what do I need or want, and how can I support that result with good communication, clarity on the table? And I learned very hard ways. I had lots of very hard lessons around being a poor communicator, because I would let my emotions get in there and I would react emotionally, and then my speech or my communication was ineffective. So when we mature emotionally, that also impacts everything. So our communication impacts our health and our wellness, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. When I was in the hospital, without the proper communication, I might have died because they were resisting doing that surgery. I left in an ambulance from my hometown, traveled 2 hours to the bigger center, and my impression was that I was going to be having surgery that same night. I laid there for 4 days doing this flush, that experiment, blah, blah. And finally, I communicated to my doctor. The surgeon came in every morning. I said, I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. And obviously, there's something very wrong. I was sent here to have an operation and I'm not having it. So I need that to happen like today, because I'm going to die if I just keep laying here. And that evening, I had the surgery. So we need to be very effective in the way that we communicate to get the results we need. If I had not communicated that, I could be dead right now. You wouldn't even be listening to me. That's how serious this was. So communication has been on my mind this last little while because of my own situation with this surgery, and of course, working last week up north and recognizing some things around why people are not able to communicate. We're worried about hurting somebody's feelings. I hear that a lot. Well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Well, I have news. You're not in charge of somebody else's feelings. They are. And if they choose to feel hurt, that's theirs. Kathy's asked a question, why did they wait? Because they wanted to try some different things. They injected flushes to see if that would help move things around. No. My small intestine was closed off and attached to scar tissue from appendix surgery I had when I was 5. And over the years, that opening just got smaller and smaller till it finally was blocked off. So then anything that went into my stomach, that's as far as it was going. And I laid like that for 10 days. Yes, it needed to be snipped and cut and trimmed, whatever they did in there. And isn't that interesting? I had my appendix out when I was 5. And that old scar tissue, the intestines had wrapped themselves around that. And I guess that's very common after you've had some kind of surgery down the road, that can happen. So I was really shocked and surprised by the outcome. All right, well, let's get to work with our letters, the word communication. So if you write the word starting at the top, COMMUNICATION, and I have a word to go with it. What does communication create? What does great communication create? Well, first of all, it creates consistency. C, consistency. You're not going to have any big surprises when you have been clear, when you have been precise, when you have been specific. It doesn't create confusion and chaos. It's consistent. It helps to build consistency. And then when you're consistent in your communication, people can depend on that. They can rely on that. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that's called integrity, which comes down a little later in the list. All right, so we have consistency. And my show might not be an hour today. I've also decided, I've made some decisions. If I don't need it to be an hour, then it doesn't need to be an hour. I'm just here, right? Broadcasting to you from the Disability Channel, via Facebook, YouTube. All right, communication, C-O. What is the O? What does that create? Well, it creates openness. When people feel safe that they can come and speak with you. And I wasn't very good at that. I had a lot of people who couldn't come to me because they didn't feel safe. They thought I would judge them or find fault with them. So I wasn't open. But good communication, effective communication helps you to become more open to new ideas, open to hearing the other side, open to understanding what people are needing or wanting, paying attention. So that's what I chose for the letter O. Then I was a little challenged because there were two M's coming up, C-O-M-M. So the first M, the word I wrote is motivating. When you communicate effectively and you get the results that you want, it motivates us. So when the doctor said, you'll be going up to surgery tonight, that immediately shifted my motivation to go, great. I'm on the road to recovery. I'm being looked after. He heard me. I felt heard. And so I became motivated to get better even faster. So effective communication impacts that ability to feel motivated. Laying on the couch, eating a bag of chips and drinking a can of Coke and watching some mindless television is not very motivating. Or if I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, it's how I talk. Before I get out of bed in the morning, I go, what exciting thing do I have to look forward to today? And it's either the show, or I'm going for a big walk with my dog, or I'm going to make some bread. What's motivating? But I have to communicate that to myself. I talk to myself a lot. Now, I don't want to say this, that I talk to myself out loud. That's a little bizarre. But when we share good communication with ourselves, wow, life, it gets so easy, breezy, lemon squeezy. And it's not all dark and dreary, because a lot of that comes from how I talk to myself. Yeah, I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. Oh, gee, I've got to lose 50 pounds. My family doesn't love me anymore. Whatever you're saying, if it's not supporting you, then it's not helpful. But we do it. We're our own worst critics. So getting motivated. The second M was, when you become an effective communicator, you can mentor others to be the same. They can learn from you. You can be the mentor in the family. Oftentimes, healing in a family starts with one person taking a new step or a different step, and then the whole family shifts. As a matter of fact, research has shown that when you work in a community, because the community needs help, when you have 15% of the community on board, the whole rest of the community will shift. For example, in a community of 1,000 people, if 150 people start talking differently, start acting differently, start doing things differently, the rest of the community will make the shift. Isn't that awesome? That's so amazing to me. That's the second M. Next is the letter U. And on that letter, I put effective communication creates unity. People coming together, people sharing their stories, people recognizing. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that I get after I do a workshop like that, I didn't realize that others felt the same way, or I didn't realize that others had the same experience as me. And so all of a sudden, they don't feel alone anymore. That's huge. That's huge because there's unity. And out of that, yes, Kathy, out of that comes understanding. There's another U word. So, yeah, put your words up. That'd be great. And effective communication creates understanding. There's no question about that. Unity, understanding. It's big because actually, regardless of the color of your skin, whether you have a disability or not, what culture you come from, what are your religious beliefs, guess what? We have more in common than we don't. We have more things that are the same than not. But we use all these other things as barriers. And then that lack of understanding creates problems. Big ones. War comes out of that. For the N, I chose nurturing. Effective communication creates nurturing. Because when I can effectively communicate, which means also that I listen more than I talk, that is nurturing to others, to have someone hear them. For many years, and I've documented a lot of things. I've got more journals than I have a library. Somebody's going to have some fun one day reading them all because they're quite fun. But let's say, for example, I had a childhood trauma. It's not the trauma that really does me in. It's the fact that nobody was listening, or when I shared it, nobody believed me. And so that's what really hurts people when they don't feel heard. And they might talk till the cows come home, but that doesn't mean they're feeling heard. So that's a huge hurt for a lot of people, that they don't feel heard. So that understanding comes back into play again. But a great communicator can be very nurturing because sharing messages of hope and love and caring and kindness. And today, November 13th, I was supposed to be, speaking of kindness, in California because I was receiving an award for kindness. And it's Kindness Day. And I'm just so sorry I can't be there for the second year in a row because of my health. And I have to stay home right now because I don't really want to be traveling until I get my clear bill of health from my surgeon in a couple of weeks. So yeah, nurturing. Your voice can be so soothing and nurturing. And that's where tone comes in. If I was here talking to you like this and telling you all about how important communication is, because that's what you really need, how long could you listen to that? So I had to learn how to change the tone of my voice so that it would become more nurturing, more helpful, more hopeful. And I learned that. I didn't come out of there like that. I had to learn that. And there was a time, because I taught kindergarten, that I used to talk like this. And I'd say, well, today we're going to talk about communication. And communication is very important. See the tone? Hear the difference? So if you have messages out there and you're doing podcasts, and I see all kinds of people doing podcasts, and I'm going, wow, you've not taken any voice lessons when it comes to broadcasting. Whoa. No, that's not going to last. And it was one of my sisters, actually, who said to me, you should be on the radio. And I went, oh, what are you talking about? And she was right. She said, with your voice, you'd be great on the air. And that was 27 years ago. And I'm so grateful to her today for that. The next I is interest. Good, effective communication creates interest in you, interest in who you are, interest in what you're doing, interest. And we all love that little bit of attention, that if we thought we were an interesting individual, that people would be attracted to that. And interesting, I like the word meaningful conversations that are interesting. I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about what color I'm going to paint the walls. I don't want to talk about, superficial things. I like to have meaningful, interesting conversations. What do you know that I don't know that you can teach me? And what do I know that you don't know that I can share with you? So communication needs to be interesting and informative and meaningful, not the babble of nothingness. And a lot of people talk about nothingness. That's time is of the essence. And so as you get older, as I'll speak for myself, as I have gotten older, I recognize the value of my time. And it's my most precious commodity right now because time is running out. When you're young, you don't think of that. You don't think, you don't even think about getting to be 75. To a young person, 30 is old. Isn't that the way we process life, our lifespan? But on this end, on the last chapter, I recognize the importance and the value of my time. So I need to say what I mean and mean what I say. And that creates some problems for people because then they don't like you very much if you've focused on the truth. Oh, too bad. Too bad. Mhm. All right. Another C. We're down to another C, communication. And for that, I put collaboration. When you are an effective communicator, you can create the most amazing friends, the most amazing connections. There's a word we could put there, connections. Great communicators have lots of connections. I'm one of them. I have lots of connections. I've created a lot of relationships over the years because I know how to communicate effectively to build that relationship, to have that collaboration. Rather than competition or competitiveness or chaos, collaborate. Two heads are better than one any day of the week. Totally. So we teach this in one of our workshops. It's called Creative Dynamic Thinking. And it actually shows you how to put a little mastermind group together. So whatever problem you're ever going to have, you have that collaboration going on. If I need something done or I have a situation, I have a group of people that I can pull in at any time and say, okay, here's the situation. What are your thoughts? What would you do? What do you think? That has helped me a lot, especially in business. The next letter is A, communication. Well, I put the word action. We have a saying where I'm from that talk is cheap and rum costs money. So again, we can talk and 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 talk, but never get anything done. And I see a lot of that going on. There's nothing, it's okay to talk about something, but let's walk it. So I always divide, people come in three different packages. They're either talking the talk, they're talking, they're questioning, they're editing, they're correcting. That's talking the talk. And it means nothing really. It doesn't accomplish much. Then we have talk the walk. So maybe you're an expert in a certain area and you talk about it, but you don't live it. I had a young man come up to me one time in a workshop and he said, Laurie, my addictions counselor is a dealer in my community. I went, what do you mean? Well, my addictions counselor, the person I go to for counseling, sells drugs. I went, wow. So there's a person who has the training to be an addictions counselor, but in everyday life is not walking that talk. Excuse me. That's called no credibility, no integrity. And there's a lot of that going on out there right now. All of a sudden, everybody is an expert because they have a podcast or they wrote a book or they did something. So the third type is walk the walk. And that's what people pick up on when I'm doing my work in the world, because I only talk about those things that I have experienced. And at 75, I've experienced quite a bit. So I can talk about quite a bit because I've walked that walk. And one of my clients last week actually wrote that in his feedback sheet. He said, "This is the first workshop I've ever been to that wasn't delivered out of somebody's textbook. Dr. Laurie lived it and now shares it with us to help us." It wasn't a textbook. It was real life. Real life. So when you seek out a mentor or someone to guide and direct you, make sure they've had the experience and they're not just helping you out of a textbook. All right. Which then leads to T for trust. Effective communicators can build trust. And there were times in my life that people didn't trust me, and I didn't blame them because I was not trustworthy on some level. I wasn't clear. It wasn't that I wasn't trustworthy. It was that I wasn't clear on my communication, what the ground rules were, or what the expectations were, or how I would put something out there. The clarity wasn't there. It wasn't that I wasn't trustworthy, but trust was impacted because of my communication or lack of. And when we lack good communication skills, we make a lot of assumptions. We assume we know things about people when we don't know anything about them at all because we haven't had those meaningful conversations. So we need to have those meaningful conversations. The next one is I. And what I put there was integrity. And that's what I just talked about. If I say I'm going to do something, I need to do it. And I wasn't always able to do that. And I didn't have, that wasn't really role model to me in a very strong way. But I have come to understand that your word is your bond. Any lawyer can get you out of a contract, any smart lawyer. People think that they sign contracts and paperwork and blah, 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 and they're protected. No, not at all. So we need to cross the T's and dot the I's in our communication. Are we clear? I asked that question. Are we clear about what we're doing next or what time the meeting is or integrity? Mean what you say what you mean, and mean what you say. So then you don't feed yourself a bunch of garbage that's not even true. See, because we're the biggest, fattest liars on the planet. And the person we lie to the most often is ourselves. We have a narrative going on that may not even be true. And I shared this with my men this morning in my men's group. You are totally way smarter than you think you are. And they just kind of looked at me and went, "You mean that?" I said, "Yes. We are way smarter than we're willing to give ourselves credit for." But that's low self-worth. That's why we do that work, because so much depends on that. I suggested to one of my clients that she's on social media. I said, "You should put your certificate, post your certificate." "Oh, no," she said, "I shoved it in a drawer along with my other degrees." That was just this week. And we've had that situation before and have cleared that up. That's a self-worth issue. Not being able to give myself credit. And when we talk about denial, I always tell people we're not in denial just about the bad stuff. We can be in denial about the good stuff. I'm in denial about how effective I am, how pretty I am, how handsome I am, how smart I am. We can be in denial about that as well. Great communication creates optimism, looking at the possibilities. So rather than it looking at what can go wrong, which sometimes comes in handy, I will admit, what's wrong? Let's look about what's right. And my communication can create that for me. What's right about my life? What's right about who I am or who I've become? What's right about how I feel? So, optimism. And when I'm talking communication today, I'm also talking about not this kind of communication where I'm speaking with you, but the communication that goes on in here when I'm by myself. And it better be darn good, or I'm letting it go. And the minute I start criticizing myself or judging myself, I don't need to be doing that because there are enough people out there who will do that for me. So I don't need to be doing it for me. So I'll go bleep, nope, bleep, bleep, nope. Because we all have been very programmed from childhood about who we should be, what we should look like, how we should dress, how we should wear our hair, how we should make friends or not. Programming, we're very programmable. And I can prove that to you because I shared this with my group last week when I was working and doing an in-person group. Everybody came in after the breaks, after lunch, even on the second day, and sat in exactly the same seat. That's how programmable we are. We can be led around so easily. And then all the justification. Well, I had my books were sitting here. I didn't want to take somebody else's seat. Blah, blah. That's how we justify that. But the real fact is we're programmable. That's the bottom line. So we can be programmed right down the garden path or programmed somewhere totally differently, depending. And the last letter is N. And as much as I don't like the word nice, oh, he's nice, she's nice, creative and effective communication supports you in being a nice person. Somebody that people can look up to, somebody that can role model for others, not being afraid of you, not putting the walls up, the barriers, just being a really nice person. And what's wrong with that? Well, it's okay as long as you're not doing it to please people and you're not being treated like a doormat and people are walking all over you and taking advantage. I'm not talking about that kind of nice. I'm just talking about all the words we use, because if you think about those words, being consistent, being open, being motivated and having motivation to do things, mentoring, a willingness to mentor others, having unity and understanding, being nurturing, being interested in other people, collaborating, taking action, trusting, big issue for a lot of people. I could do 10 shows on that. Just that one concept of trust, 10 shows, no problem. Insight, integrity, being optimistic, and just being plain nice. We need more niceness in the world. When I look at all the crime and the violence, the family violence, the way children are being treated, wow, scary. But it can change, but it has to start here. I had to do that for me first before I could talk about it to others. And that took decades. Decades. I don't talk now like I did 5 years ago or even last week. Or even before the surgery, I don't talk the same way. I've ramped it up. I'm more effective now than I've ever been because of that. Because life's experiences change us, or at least they should, and I've always been open to changing myself. Not to be a better person. I've always been a very good person, but to be a more effective person. And when my clients say, well, I just want to be a better person, I always say, you know what? You're already terrific. We just need to be more effective. And being effective is all rooted in our self-worth and the way we communicate. And sometimes when I see people being interviewed or I watch other broadcasters and podcasters, I go, wow, where did you learn how not to speak on the air? Where did you learn that? So it's very important, if you have a message, that you get very clear about your message and you communicate it effectively. And that's what I'm able to do very quickly. As soon as I meet somebody, or I meet that group, or I'm in that workshop, I know how to build that trust and get that effectiveness happening right away, because time is of the essence. We don't have time to waste. As we're talking right now, every 40 seconds, someone has communicated to themselves that they are no longer valuable or worthy and they want to leave the planet. And they're either using a rope, a gun, pills, you name it. Every 40 seconds. And you don't come out of your mother's womb saying things like, I'm going to grow up and be a drug addict. I'm going to grow up and be a criminal. I'm going to grow up and then kill myself. That's programming, conditioning, negative self-talk, not feeling valuable, getting ourselves out of one trauma into another. That's the veil of trauma that we talk about. But one of the ways to break down that barrier is communication. What am I saying to myself? You know, if you say this to yourself enough, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. The body goes, okay, and lays down. And you get up and you go, oh, I just had a big 3-hour nap and I'm still tired. Instead of, you know, I just had a nice 3-hour nap and I'm feeling refreshed. It's language. What are you saying to yourself? And the big one is, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do that. I couldn't do that. Yes, you can. You can do anything you put your mind to. And there are enough people out there who've proven us wrong. So we know that's correct. People who were disadvantaged, disabled, injured, no parents. People have done amazing things, and we've had them on our shows. So we can't use that as an excuse anymore. We need to make changes in our family, starting with us first, then our family, then our communities. We can only pass on to others what we have in place for ourselves. So if I'm not confident, I can't give that to my kids or my family. I have to have that myself first. So what are you doing to build that? What are you doing to get that? There's lots of help out there. There's lots of places to go. Ours is one of them. And that's all we do every day, is we support people with their personal and professional development. And when you're in that game, there's no going back. It's a lifetime journey. There is no arrival time. So once you step in, you're here forever. And that's why a lot of people don't, because they don't want to do the work that is required to become that more effective person. Not better person. We're all terrific. As a matter of fact, if you're on the planet right now, you're a miracle. So why would we think we're not good enough? Because people told us we weren't. And children can be very, very cruel. Have you noticed? So we have so much work to do, ladies and gentlemen. And what I would ask you to do, I'm going to wrap up here very shortly, just share the show. You don't have to have just go into Facebook right now and share it, because somebody that you know, if you don't need this information for you, you know people who need it. So why wouldn't you do that to make sure they get the message that might help them or save them or build them up? So that's another decision I made when I was in the hospital, that I'm going to take my shows in a totally different direction, because we need millions of people watching our show. And the only way that's going to happen is two friends tell two friends tell two friends. And with social media, poof, should be a cakewalk. After the shows, I get on my Facebook page, or you can go into YouTube, and I share the show. Share, share, share. Because I know that what we have to say is very important and it matters. And I know that we communicate it very well. So, pitter patter, let's get at it. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis. You've been listening to the Today Show here on the Disability Channel. Thank you for allowing me to take some time to share with you how communication impacts our lives, all aspects of our lives, even our health and wellness. So bye for now. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, Kathy. Shared already. We'll be back tomorrow with Jill Younghusband, and we have a very special veteran who's coming on with us tomorrow at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, and we'll see you then. Bye for now.